So Chris, one of the other really exciting things he talked about at S2 was this ability for Solink customers to be able to build AI agents on Solink. Can you talk a bit about our plan for that and the value you see this unlocking for Solink customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what's really exciting about what's to come is, we have access to all this video and we have 375 data integrations. And when you put those together in a platform and you start thinking about what's possible for an AI agent to be able to start solving for a business, I don't know about you guys, but I get really excited. It's this idea that, for example, I could have an AI agent whose task or responsibility is to just protect the outdoor perimeter of our building. And so if we kind of break that down, the first thing is you're going to give it a background. You're going to say that you are a SOC operator and you've been doing this for 20 years and you have such and such experience in retail protection and so on and so forth. And you're also going to give it, an objective. That's the most important thing. Your goal is to go ahead and protect the perimeter of our building, to try to go ahead and deter that individual that may be coming the perimeter during the off hours. And ultimately, if something goes wrong, I don't want you to dispatch police. There'll be guardrails too. I also never want you to go against this idea of our corporate employee policy. I want you to read it, understand it thoroughly, include that into your decision making, and ultimately try to deter. And if you can't, go ahead and escalate to a human. And so ultimately that agent will also have data sources such as person detection, different camera views, whether or not doors are open or closed, whether or not the alarm system is armed or disarmed, and also have the available actions that it might have. So those actions could, for example, be to trigger a speaker to go ahead and do talk down, or those actions could be as simple as escalating to a human because they can't sort of deter that situation.
What's really exciting is with things like multi-context protocol, the industry is standardizing the way that AI systems can get information or data as well as take action. And so although Chris talked about some very specific actions that are available today or in the near future in the Solink platform, this kind of architecture is going to allow systems like Solink to make use of a huge number of data sources and actions that are standardized in the AI community.
Well, one of the things we talked a lot about is this idea that when you start pairing video with data, it creates more context for the whole organization, right? But also more context for those AI agents. And I think when you start, when you think about what Martin just spoke about, it's this idea that it's not just context within Solink, but also in other systems. And so think of how much value there can come for an organization when you have eyes on the business on what's happening in there, and you can pair that out with any other system that might be connected back to Solink. There's so much potential you can solve, and my mind is racing with everything that's possible here.
There's been a lot of talk in the market about agents and AI agentic workflows, but really in the Solink platform, we've had that for years. The ability to detect something, take action on it, maybe ask another question or do something else based on that action. That's what Solink's event-based workflow has always been about. But what I'm really excited about is the ability for AI agents to reason over that, to make decisions, to have complex long-term tasks across the whole range of your data and video.
Yeah, so a couple examples that would be, for example, the outdoor remote guarding agent that's actually deterring individuals that are trying to trespass on a property in the middle of the night. Or you could have an LP analyst, for example, where instead of having my LP analyst having to dig through, tons of EBR reports and kind of find that needle in the haystack, it's how do we actually have an AI agent do that first pass and find those 10, 12 really important transactions to look at, which are worth investigating and following up on, right? And also, how do we actually flip those LP agents to do something more proactive? Instead of trying to find issues, how do they actually create a system that prevents that from happening in the first place? Another example might be an AI agent that's responsible for monitoring shelves and stock and how product is moving. And is there an opportunity for us to actually move this from here to there? Because we're seeing a lot more, the sale price of that item is higher, the margin is higher, yet this area is getting more traffic. So there's so much that can be done in it. It's about that AI agent, again, being able to take all that data, again, those hundreds of millions of hours of video, ingest it, process it, and ultimately make recommendations for the team to improve things over time.
And think about, which ad played on the TV screen in the front of the store is most effective. Think about when someone picked something up from your product display, is that the product that they bought? How many of them did they buy? Which way do people travel through the store? And how does that impact how much time they spend with a member of staff and your staffing levels required? There are so many possibilities. And what's really exciting is what our customers are going to come up with, not what we know about today.
What do you say to someone who's feeling a bit anxious about AI potentially replacing their work and their value that they bring to their organization today?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately there's going to be two lanes to pick. One is I'm going to resist this change, and one is I'm going to go ahead and adopt it and really augment my team. I think ultimately our goal is not to replace anyone. It's to really augment all employees so they can do their best work. Rather than having to do the monotonous work of seeking through hours of video, why can't I actually have an AI agent go do that for me? And so ultimately I can focus in on the 10, 12 important events in that day and follow up and investigate as I need to. And ultimately it comes down to a lot more output for that organization. So for example, if you were to take a remote monitoring agent, typically they're there, looking back and staring at 16 cameras as much as they can and kind of seeing those rotate through. You think of where an AI agent will go, and we're already doing a lot of this, is this idea that like you have AI that can actually monitor all this footage for you and tell you when there's an important event. It can do the initial deterrence. It can say, hey, I've detected that there's a person here. I've tried the automated deterrence using voice playback and said, hey, you in the blue shirt, I see you. Please vacate the premises, otherwise we will notify authorities. And then ultimately, if that doesn't do its job, we can escalate that event to that security agent. And so that security agent is able to handle 100, 200, 300 locations instead of the 2 or 3 they could previously handle.
I think at Solink we believe that AI can enhance what anyone can do, and it's all about making work more meaningful, more fun. It's not about replacing people, it's about making them more effective. For example, we used to do like slow iteration of UI designs and UX. Now we can go through 1,000 designs in a week and get the best one.